morning, ladies and gentlemen. Having been a resident in the New York area for 7 years, coming to New York, always a happy event for me. And the opportunity to appear in front of many friends in the Asia Society is particularly very warming for me. So thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to a very constructive and useful discussion. I thought, what should I be contributing to this? You know, and there'll be many distinguished scholars and experts be talking about U.S. economic relations, and others will be talking about the Road and Belt initiative, and so on and so forth. So I thought I would let them talk about those particular issues. What I want to do is to talk about U.S. China relation itself, how important it is. Modern day U.S. China relationship began with Richard Nixon's visit to Chairman Mao in Beijing in 1972. And since then, 9 presidents of the United States, 5 leaders of China have worked to strengthen the relationship, knowing very well that a good relationship between the two countries is very important, not only for the two countries, but also for the world at large. Today, we can all take heart in the successful summit meeting between President Trump and President Xi this April in Florida. Although much work still needs to be done, it was a positive beginning. This is a good omen that the relationship under their watch can move forward constructively. Today's occasion is for the purpose of examining how to take the U.S.-China relationship forward. As there will be many experts on both sides who will talk on many of these topics, I will speak on U.S.-China economic relation only in the context of overall U.S.-China relations. Look back into history. The modern U.S.-China relationship that was initiated in 1972 by President Nixon and Chairman Mao Zedong was anchored by the common objective against the Soviet Union hegemonic aspirations. By the time of the fall of Berlin Wall, this was no longer relevant. Since then, the U.S.-China relation has been very much anchored on an interdependent economic relationship. As China's nation-building progressed, trade in goods and services between the two countries began to grow. Investment from U.S. to China has always been a feature of this relationship, but now Chinese investment into the United States is also becoming an important factor for both countries. At the same time, people-to-people exchange between the two nations has grown. In particular, the large number of students and tourists from China to the United States have not only helped both peoples understand each other better, but also played a meaningful contribution to the economy. Looking into the future, the economic relationship between the two countries will be increasingly complementary and will always be important. But I believe the U.S.-China overall relationship should not be anchored on the economic relationship alone. In fact, in recent years, the U.S. and China have collaborated together in a number of important global areas which has yielded some success. The first major example was in 2008 when U.S. and China was faced with enormous challenges as a result of global financial crisis. U.S. economy was declining rapidly and Chinese economy was badly affected. Global economy was in a tailspin. To confront this, President Bush called for the G20 meeting in the United States. The United States prepared for a massive stimulus of $700 billion and asked China to respond in a significant way. China responded quickly. This was the first time the two countries worked together financially in the global common good. These actions prevented a global meltdown. Climate change is a good example. To start with, it was the United States initiative which led to a determined effort between the United States and China. This joint effort eventually led to Paris Climate Change Accord, an agreement which will stand as one of the most positive and consequential global agreements in recent history. I know that the U.S. has wavered to move forward, but I'm only emphasizing that it is very important that the U.S. not only stays in the agreement, but continues to be in the lead. There was press speculation that China is delighted in the U.S. withdrawal from this agreement because China would then become the undisputed leader. This cannot be further from the truth. The Paris Accord is a serious effort to reduce the threat of climate change. It is an effort that involves almost every nation in the world. Throughout these efforts, the involvement of U.S. and China was crucial. America's absence in the future will be badly missed and will set back the global effort significantly. So much on climate change. Another example of collaboration by the two countries was in 2016 when U.S. and China collaborated in West Africa to confront the Ebola disease outbreak. As a result of the efforts of the two countries, we were able to successfully overcome the disease before further damage was done. Lastly, but most importantly, the other effort that the two countries are collaborating on very closely is to the environment to ensure there is nuclear-free and peaceful Korean Peninsula. The difficulty of this effort is enormous. Without U.S. and China working together on this, the situation will be dire. With the two countries working together, it is still going to be very difficult, but at least it gives us all some hope. Today, the fact is that the world is faced with many other challenges that need urgent attention. These include building a nuclear-free world, preventing militarization of outer space, managing cyberspace, and enhancing cybersecurity, saving our seas from overfishing, acidification, and buildup of rubbish, combating terrorism, and managing global hotspots, and etc., and etc. No single country can address these challenges alone. Multilateral approach will be necessary, and the involvement of big power is crucial. But initiatives agreed to between the United States and China from the very beginning can help the eventual success of our common efforts. I believe that contributing to global common good is a noble and good cause for the two countries to take on. But for the U.S. and China to work closely together on many of the above challenges, the two countries need to understand each other a great deal more. Generally, what are the strategic intents? What are our economic and social development objectives? What are our challenges and worries? In other words, what are the things good friends know about each other? For each of the above challenges that we may be working on together, we need to be very open about each other's motives and purposes and share information more openly. Above all, we need to bear in mind that the ultimate purpose of working together is for a better world and for a better relationship between our two countries. The general level of understanding has improved in recent years, but it is not enough. For Americans to understand China more, I would like to take this opportunity to talk to you about China. Many people are unaware of China's recent past. Therefore, I shall begin to address this issue with the date October 1st, 1949. This is the date when People's Republic of China was formally established. At that time, the country had just from many years of civil war and the war of resistance against Japan. The country was devastated by war, exhausted, and basically bankrupt. Life expectancy of Chinese people was only 35 years. Infant mortality rate was as high as 20%, and the illiteracy rate at 80%. There was little provision for education and practically no provision for medical care and social services. Infrastructure was non-existent. People suffered extreme misery and hardship. But what still remained was the spirit of the Chinese people. And this date, October 1st, 1949, marked the beginning of the rebirth of a nation. 68 years onward, where are we today? China today is the second largest economy in the world. 600 million people have been lifted out of poverty. Essential infrastructure has been built. Education, healthcare, and other forms of social services are provided for. Life expectancy is now 76 years. The infant mortality rate is 9%, illiteracy down to 4%. What's more, a closed society has become more open. Indeed, there has been an unprecedented expansion of individual freedom. The government has firmly committed itself to the building of a just society governed by the rule of law and protection of human rights. Never in the history of man has such progress been made in such a short period of time. So, where does China go from here? With a population of 1.4 billion people and a GDP per capita of $8,000, she is still a developing nation. Therefore, China will continue to work hard in nation building and eventually join the ranks of the developed nations. And this, my friends, will take many, many years. You may ask internationally, what is China's strategic intent? China wishes to pursue peace and shared prosperity with all nations around the world, particularly with her neighbors. China has no hegemonic or ideological ambitions. China does not wish to impose her system or values to other nations. The truth is that hegemonic aggression is not in the DNA of Chinese people. At the height of the Ming Dynasty, when China had 30% of the world GDP and a fleet of ships cruising back and forth along the maritime Silk Road, China never exhibited aggression intent to colonize or occupy territories. To the Chinese people, peace is always above all. China's military expansion is only for national defense purposes. The fact is that her military expenditure at a level of below 2% of GDP is comparatively low by any standard. China recognizes that in order to pursue peace, she needs to construct a credible deterrent to prevent war against her by others. And this is what China is doing. With this worldview, China places great emphasis on seeking to build a constructive relationship with all nations. But a good relationship with the United States is particularly important. But this is not easy. After all, people of the United States and China have different culture, different history, and the two countries are at different stage of development. Our needs are very different. At this stage, it is even more important, in my view, for us to understand each other better and to trust each other's goodwill and intentions more. Indeed, every time we are able to overcome a global challenge together, as stated in the above, should help us to move the U.S.-China relationship closer. On this foundation, a constructive relationship will always be possible. Too much is at stake for the Chinese and American people, for the world at large. Let us support the effort of the nine U.S. presidents and 5 Chinese leaders that have shaped a positive U.S.-China relationship to where it stands today. Most importantly, let us support the efforts being made by President Trump and President Xi to make this relationship even stronger. Thank you very much.